One of the things I think that is really impressive that you hear across the state of Indiana, and you get asked this question a lot, is what is it about the city of Wabash that is so different where you're accomplishing so many things? And so in your words, what would you say that is?
The spirit of collaboration between my office, county offices, state offices, and local organizations within the city of Wabash. It's the only way you can get anything done in today's day and age. I can't do it by myself. The city can't do it by themselves. We can't afford to do it by ourselves. So I think the goal is to find the people who know what you're trying to accomplish, or maybe one piece of what you're trying to accomplish. Get them all around the table and come up with a solution.
And that is an excellent intro into today's episode. We are joined with Mayor Scott A. Long with the City of Wabash, and I'm in the studio today with my co-hosts, Adam Stakeman and Alex Downard. Welcome back, guys.
Thanks, Mayor, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to have a heartfelt, honest conversation throughout the next hour or so. We're all going to jump in and ask questions and get insightful information from you. You are in your second term as mayor.
I am in my third term as mayor.
Oh, my goodness, when you're having fun.
When you're so productive, thank you for the clarity. Third term as mayor, gratefully. But before that, you had a whole different life in public service, and that also brought you to the position that you're in now. You have been married to your lovely wife, Jackie, for how many years?
24 this year, next month.
Congratulations. And you have quite a history of service, not only in the military, but also in the police force. So you want to talk a little bit about where your servant heart started that led you to the role that you're in today?
Well, I think it goes back to serving. My dad and 4 of his 5 brothers were in World War II, each in a different branch of service, to include the Merchant Marines. So I had seen them serve their country. When I graduated high school, I had no desire to go to college. It just wasn't me. So I decided to enlist in the Army. Was there from 1982 to August of 89, so about 7 years, and traveled all over the world. Traveled to Berlin in 1985 for 3 months when the wall was still up, when communism was rampant. And then my father had a stroke in 1988. My siblings had moved away from the community, and I was drawn back to help, take care of him. And in 93 actually, read The Plain Dealer, and they were hiring for the police department. So, I'd worn a uniform for 7 years. Why not wear a different uniform for a while?
Yeah.
So, I got hired on the police department in 94. It should have been a few months earlier, but the chief at the time passed away from cancer, so there were some transitions of chief and assistant chief before they hired some people. So we were delayed probably 6 months in getting hired, but it was myself, Matt Bruss, and Bob Pilgrim all hired on at the same time. And we're all 3 retired now. So
Yeah. Well, I think
To clarify, though, Mayor, I think they're retired. You may be retired from the police department,
Yeah.
but you've not quite hung it up yet.
yeah, they're a little bit smarter than I am. So.
how long did you serve on the police department or the police force?
Not, who's really counting, but 21 years and 9 months.
Yeah, we added
that
up.
was pretty much it.
And saw a lot of change.
Oh, absolutely. When I hired on in 1994, I think we had 3 patrol cars on the police department. And they were run 24/7, 365.
Sure.
unless they were broke down. And, you know, we made a conscious decision at some point that, hey, we got to get more cars because we're just beating these things up. And because, you know, you drive them really slow around town.
Yeah.
Through alleys and fields and wherever the
Hot
job
pursuit.
takes
Hot pursuit.
you.
It's so
Yeah.
exciting. And then
Yeah.
what made you decide after police retirement that led you to think that filling the role as the mayor for the city of Wabash was the next step for you?
Well, I ran for city council, filed to run for city council in 1999. And prior to that fall's election, Ron Frischman, who was a city councilman at large, moved out of the city, so he had to resign because he didn't live in Wabash anymore. And I applied for the caucus to replace him. Was selected actually in August of 99 to finish out his last 4 months. I was already on the ballot, won the election. And so I served on that for 16 years. And the state law changed that you could not serve in an elected position if you worked for that municipality or county. So at the end of 2015, I would have been done regardless. And had talked to the previous mayor, Bob Van Laningham, and he told me he wasn't going to run again. And, you know, I've always loved this community. I saw parts of this community that a lot of the residents don't see. While I was on the police department, saw some things that needed to be addressed. And, you know, since I've been in office as mayor, trying to address some of those things, the walkability, sidewalks in neighborhoods, making sure that they are up to par. Drainage issues. There's some issues in certain areas of town that I thought could be corrected without much effort. A little bit of money, get it done right. Let's quit putting Band-Aids on wounds that just keep festering, so to speak. Let's go in and do a transplant and make sure that it's good for another 40 or 50 years.
So your perspective as a police officer allowed you to see the city with a whole different lens than just a standard citizen, in ways that you're able to protect it. You're seeing all parts of the city as a whole, and you're patrolling it consistently year after year. So you
Right.
also become aware of areas of focus that might be worked on at the city level. And so that gave you this perspective, if you were elected, which you have been 3 times now, to be able to address some of those concerns. Addressing concerns with the best intentions sometimes isn't always received with the same intention that is applied to the work
Right.
that you're trying to accomplish, I would imagine at times.
Yeah, and one other thing, as you're out patrolling around, I had the thought that from a city council standpoint, what are we going to do in the future for this community? Where are we going to expand? So that gave me the opportunity to see the periphery of the city and where's a good area to maybe locate industrial parks and things of that nature. And so that goes along with it. But you talk about some of the decisions that you make, and I'll go back to my first few years in office. This is going to draw you into this because I talked about getting rid of the trees downtown. And
Those trees were a
But-
hazard.
yeah,
The
but if
bird dookie was like carpet on the sidewalk.
there was some pushback
Yeah, sure.
on taking those trees out.
Sure.
And I had a vision of planters that had electrical outlets in them and ledges on top that could be sat on so that you have seating downtown without having benches blocking your sidewalks, which we had some of those benches too. And everybody wanted more seating capacity. So, okay, how can we do this? And I think what we've done has turned out phenomenally.
It's beautiful.
For all the events that we have downtown, the parades, the First Fridays, any other events that are going on, We've kind of got it going on in downtown Wabash.
Well, beautification is an introduction to the quality of place and life of a community.
Yeah.
So even if your first visit here, you aren't stopping and shopping the first time that you're on your way to a show at the Honeywell Center, you're in town for a wedding or a class reunion, that starts to tell the story of what it's like to live here and what our leadership does, whether they invest back into their community and the quality of life. And so
Right.
our relationship with visitors and also supporting the people who live here start from the outside in. I mean, that's a tremendous way for you to approach investing back in our city that also appeals to the population attraction piece. I know that Alex is focused on through the Imagine 185 plan quite heavily.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things with the trees downtown, we had one stellar in 2014 before I took office, and that became a point of contention during my first election. It was called a Ponzi scheme because nobody had seen anything happening. Well, any good plan that you have, there's a lot of planning and designing and detail that goes into anything before you see a hammer or a shovel. When I took office in 2016, we were at the point where we were going to start digging and shovels and hammers and everything like that. So we had created a facade grant program downtown, and the city put in 1.3 million of TIF revenue, and 34 million plus of investment privately came into the buildings downtown. And as I'm driving downtown, I'm like, we just spent all this money and you can't see it because of these trees. That was another issue.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see what store was in that building as you're driving down the street. So removal of those trees, putting in the proper pavers that didn't disintegrate when you hit them with a pressure washer.
Some of the trees were the wrong type of trees. They were uprooting the
All
grates.
of the trees were the wrong types.
Yeah,
Of
so
trees.
they were actually a trip hazard or
Yeah.
safety hazard for
Big time.
pedestrians too.
And we had a couple of injuries downtown because of them. So, and then you talk about the bird droppings, and I would see a toddler walking down the street and picking it up and going towards their mouth, and I'm like, we got to do something about this.
You mentioned funds from the TIF
Yep.
district. Can you explain what TIF is? For us, we understand it. I'm
Yep.
familiar with the term, but for those listening, they may not understand what TIF monies are.
So TIF is tax increment financing. So if you create a TIF district, which we have several here in town, what you're doing is capturing the increased assessment. Okay, so you got a piece of property, say you got a building and it's assessed at $50,000. You're in a TIF district and you make an improvement to that building. The increase from 50,000 to whatever the taxes on that can be captured. That's called TIF revenue. Then you can use that TIF revenue to reinvest within that TIF district.
So it improves the property of whoever's located in the TIF district as well because it's improving where their building or their property's located.
And it makes their property more valuable.
Right,
to
in
them.
the long run.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's great.
Yep.
What a great use of those funds. I'm aware what TIF funds were, but I know many don't understand the way that you are able to leverage those investments
Right.
in multiple ways where it doesn't always feel like it's coming down to everyone just thinks taxes are constantly being raised and that's how you're funding everything. And I
Right.
think that's some of the topics we do want to talk about today is how it affects you as the leader and responsible for just over 10,000 residents. And I know that responsibility does weigh heavy on you. You
Yeah.
do not take that lightly. And then when changes happen that are out of your control that we're seeing at the state level, how are you able to bend, adjust, and still feel confident in the way that you're able to provide the level of service that you do to the people who do live in your district or in the city?
Well, and that's the key also with the services that have been provided historically by the city of Wabash. You want to continue that same level of service. The city of Wabash's tax rate historically, since I've been in office, has been between $1.79 and $1.84 per hundred of assessed valuation. So your city taxes haven't gone up, but there are multiple taxing entities within the county. So you've got county tax, you've got township tax, you've got library tax, you've got school taxes. Sometimes you pay two schools depending on where you live. So all those other taxing entities' tax rate can fluctuate. Particularly, schools seem to fluctuate more than county or city government or township government. The year of COVID threw us a curveball because I think our tax rate went to 211 per hundred, so it went up 30 cents. But it immediately, the following year, came back down to like $1.84, something like that. The problem being, if you save money as a city and you lower your tax rate, those other taxing entities can grab a part of that savings and raise theirs.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way it is, and it makes no sense to me. And I'm like, why would I lower my tax rate when I can provide great services to my residents and do it better than maybe somebody else can?
Mm-hmm. When you say services, I think there's this big diluted understanding that that's my tax dollars at work. That's my tax, which don't get me wrong, I
Yeah.
get that perspective, right? We as people who are working see a lot of money go out of our paycheck before we take it home. I relate to that. So when you're talking about city taxes and the services that you provide or the city provides with by using those taxes that are collected just at the city level, what are those services specifically when you start to break those outward?
Well, your roads, your streets, your sidewalks, all those improvements have to be paid for, and that comes out of different tax buckets. A lot of your streets and roads, we get money from the state and federal gasoline tax that trickles down to us. Shockingly, the city doesn't have a gas tax. I know that's a misconception. Parks Department, all those parks, we've got, I think, 70 acres of parks in the city of Wabash.
They're beautiful.
And those have to be maintained. Let me think of the other, police and fire protection.
I was gonna say I like that my toilet flushes.
Yeah,
I
well,
think- I
that's a
think-
user fee.
but
That's not on the
nonetheless-
tax rate.
Okay, that's good clarity. I
Okay.
didn't realize that. So that's a
Yeah,
different.
so your wastewater bill covers that. What you pay on your wastewater fees and your stormwater fees takes care of stormwater drainage when it rains.
Well, I still
Make
like that.
sure your
Commode flushes.
Yeah.
So if you flush your commode more than others, your bill will be higher. Is there like a flush?
So your bill is based on your water consumption.
We might have to have Bob Gray come in here, superintendent for the wastewater plant. I'd love to talk toilets with Bob.
Better put some seat belts in these chairs if you do that.
He knows I adore him. Absolutely adore Bob Gray.
Bob Gray knows our system like the back of his hand. And he appreciates that I'm not afraid to go out and look down a manhole, or I'd probably crawl down one if I needed to,
Micro and dirty jobs.
yeah.
That's what it makes me think of.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mayor, as you talked about the services that our taxes go towards, I mean, the police and the fire that you served, on, obviously covered under taxes as well.
Yep.
All that equipment, the manpower that show up when we are in need.
Yeah. Has anybody bought a new vehicle lately?
I don't know. Has anybody in this room bought a new vehicle lately thanks to the great outdoors?
Alex?
Well, you
Anyone?
got a fairly new one. That's,
Well,
I mean,
not
it's
as
used,
not
but,
as freshly as old Alex
Right.
is there.
well. Yeah.
Nature helped him make the decision to buy.
So, if you go out and you look for a vehicle now, let's say you're going to buy a new pickup truck,
Oh,
60,000 minimum. That's for a work truck. That doesn't have any bells and whistles on it.
yeah.
So as a consumer, you go out and buy that, and we purchased a new fire truck, signed the contract in November of 2023 for a fire truck. We don't take delivery until March of 2026. So 2.5 years to build it. $1.3 million
Oh my gosh.
for the truck,
One fire truck.
one fire truck.
Right.
And that's why you drive them until it is time to get the new vehicle. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why you have to wait till it's absolutely ready to put out of commission before you invest, because it's such a large investment.
Well, they start nickel and diming you to death
Yeah.
because the pumps go out on them and you're having them repaired constantly, and you can't afford to have a fire truck offline. Because
Well,
about the
no.
time two of them go offline, then something big's going to happen.
Sure.
It's just Murphy's Law. And every city in the state struggles with this, the cost of equipment. So what I'm trying to get at, the cost of the consumer goods that you face at home, the taxes that you pay, the mayor pays those taxes too.
Right. You're not exempt. Yeah.
I don't get a pass because I'm sitting in this position. You know, all our consumables within City Hall and all of our buildings, we're looking right now, and we're firm believers in buying local.
Mm-hmm.
If you can match a price, I can get toilet paper from, say, Amazon, then I'll keep buying from you.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can save the taxpayers money by shopping that way, that's what we're going to do
Yeah.
to save tax dollars.
To be good stewards of
Yeah.
those dollars. Yeah.
Mayor, I think so far in the conversation, it's been the listeners are getting a great taste of who you are and what I've come to appreciate the most about you and your servant leadership background. But whether it's trees on the streets in downtown Wabash, whether it's the price of toilet paper, the small things, all the way up to the multi-million-dollar large projects that we're fortunate enough to get to work on, you approach the same exact way with the same
Yeah.
seriousness and the same servant's heart. There's a big cities, right? You often see a mayor as a figurehead or somebody that's just at the ribbon cutting or is extremely political, and that's not you, right? And we all know that and get to appreciate that because we get to work with you every day. But the conversation, to the point, your latest example of the toilet paper, is I'm so glad that we're having that conversation so that the listeners can hear truly where your heart is and how you approach every day in the job.
Yeah, I'm not a politician. I'm a guy that wants to come in and get things done and make this community better for its citizens, my kids, my grandkids who live here, and the people I work with. That's the goal. Did I make it better today than it was yesterday? Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be better tomorrow because I'm on this podcast. So, whatever it takes.
Mayor, it's easy to address those issues that are happening right here, right today, that, are burning issues that have to be taken care of. But one of the things that I've picked up on over your 3 terms is that you're not just looking at today or tomorrow, but you have an eye to the future. There are some big projects out there that you've been working on, like you said earlier, from the time it's just an idea through the planning until there's shovel ready. That can be decades.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed that and kind of been surprised, honestly, because you've come in as kind of, never had a role in politics that high, but you have an eye for the future and what this city is going to look like in 10, 20 years when you're no longer mayor. What's that like, and what's that process been like to learn all those hoops that you have to go through to get a project moving forward?
It teaches you patience because everybody wants, I want my street paved tomorrow. Well, we can't make that happen. I'm sorry. Prime example right now, we've milled Miami Street from Harrison Avenue all the way north. And at the same time, coordinated with Indiana American Water, hey, do you need to do some work in here before we put the pavement down? Yeah, we need to replace 17 service lines to homes. And this is part of their project to make sure that they don't have lead service lines, which is nationwide, getting rid of lead service lines. So while we've got that street milled down, let's go ahead and do the digging we need to do and put new lines in so that after I pave it, in a couple of weeks, they're not in here a month later cutting it. And we get a hold of all the utilities. Hey, NIPSCO, do you need to replace a gas line? Sewer lines are in good shape up there, so we didn't have to do anything there. But you have to have the forethought as you're doing projects, and you have to look into the future to make the best decision now. We may come in and say, all right, we need to replace this sewer line, and it's going to cost us $760,000. Let's just throw it out there. Next year, that may be $840,000 because of the increase in materials, labor costs, everything that goes into a project like that. So you're always looking down the road. What am I doing today that's going to affect the future? And what can I do to mitigate future costs for the residents of the city?
Yeah. And those are big thought processes to have, but that's only one of the hundreds of thoughts and decisions that you're trying to work and execute or advance on a daily basis.
Yep.
And to echo some of Alex's comments about your servant's heart and Adam's about you being one that really is looking as a visionary to leaving it better, not just while you're here to reap the benefits, but like you said, for your grandkids.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have always appreciated about you is that you don't just focus and get tunnel vision on just one piece of the pie that makes the city grow and thrive. You are having active conversations with future planning projects. You're working with the Imagine 185 plan with Alex, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about that with you. But you're working with our traditional economic development office, Grow Wabash County, constantly on their projects. You're working with Visit Wabash County on our projects. You're working with each of your department heads actively on vision planning and what do they need to take care of their budget for the year, 5-year, 10-year plans, capital improvement projects, housing initiatives. Your list goes on and on and on. And then in addition to those pieces, then you're walking alongside the nonprofit sector that is consistently looking for ways to serve the citizens that currently live here, while the rest of some of your departments and organizations you collaborate with are working to make sure that we can attract and increase our population here through some of those other types of projects and planning. And so it's not just sidewalks and trees and making sure you have, which are all key pieces, equipment that works. Like, I appreciate the fact that you want to make sure that our fire truck water pump isn't going to break down
Yeah.
on scene. But it's so many more pieces coming at you consistently on a daily basis. And you roll up your sleeves and you show up for those. You aren't just delegating it outwardly to have it fall into someone else's shoulders. You're walking alongside of your department heads. You're walking alongside my organization, the Community Foundation, the Imagine 185 plan, Grow Wabash County, that whole list, plus your board service, and your role as now your newest role as president on the Solid Waste Management Board. You are rolling up your sleeves and you are in it. You aren't clocking out at 4 o'clock and sitting on your couch and only listening to the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. You're doing so much and putting in your own sweat equity. And so I do want to thank you for that, because I know sometimes your intentions aren't well received or misunderstood sometimes. And I want you to know that I see you on the daily giving and dedicating your heart to this city, the very best that you can, and gathering the best information that you can.
Well, I appreciate that.
I really mean
The
that.
only thing you left out was Little League in the summer.
Oh, and that owns you, I've heard.
And YMCA basketball in the winter. Junior Apaches in the fall. And yeah, we're doing all that stuff. And, you know, when I took this office, unless I'm out of town, I don't ask my city council president to go do anything, because as mayor, you need to be seen in your community. I don't sit behind the desk all day in the office. I go out and check projects. And, you know, visionary projects, I was told that we've talked about a railroad overpass for 30, probably now 40 years in this community. And everybody said, you'll never get it done. Let's see.
Again.
Getting it done.
And that's critical, not only for emergency vehicles, I know, but when a train stops traffic, it stops the flow of commerce.
Yep.
And we have trains every 30 minutes in our city. Right. Absolutely.
The train itself,
The train,
and then all the other trucks on the road that are trying to deliver goods for the consumers.
That's right.
School buses. Mm-hmm. You know, so our kids aren't late to school. Caught a lot of grief over where we located the overpass, because we chose East Street. I've said it before, I'll say it again. That's a $10 million project versus a $40 million project, and we don't have to cut off the library and the courthouse and Hill Street and Sinclair Street, which would be closed north and south of the intersection or the railroad crossing you would choose. So there was a lot of thought that went into choosing that location. How do we get the most bang for our buck? And I'll tell you, the residents in the East Street neighborhood are thankful that it's being put there. And we'll have that bridge completed by the end of January next year.
Some were wondering why it wasn't on the main thoroughfare through the center of the city, which is Cass Street or 15 North. But instead, you have it about, is it 6 blocks to the east? Less of a grade,
Yep.
less of an incline, correct? And that-
Actually, the road went down to the railroad crossing.
so
East
you
Street.
weren't having to dig out.
Right. So it was
and/or-
easier to put a bridge over the top and cheaper if we would have under on either 13 or 15 or Allen Street or anywhere where you would have to bring in tunneling machines to get underneath. That cost increased fourfold. So we went from 10 to $40 million, and there would have been overruns, I'm sure,
Sure.
at this point.
And you received some funding for that project.
We did. We got 80% from Indiana Department of Transportation local tracks. Out of the 12 projects that were initially selected, our project is the only one that is within 5% of the estimate.
That's incredible.
So,
Good.
And that's because of the amount of planning work that goes in that you've spoke to.
yeah, I think so. And when you do those projects, you got to look at historical structures. You can't disturb any historical structures, any project, road project you do. So you got the State Historical Preservation Office that has to approve it. We had to have the Miami Nation of Indians in Oklahoma approve it.
Really?
Yep.
Why is that?
Because of the treaty grounds that's within proximity of it.
I had no idea.
Geology, archaeology, DNR.
The thousands of moving parts,
Yeah.
and red tape, and everything else, right?
Yeah, and that was a lot of what we had to go through first. There is a North Wabash Historic District that was designated 30 years ago. Michael Galbraith at the regional partnership level, RDA, was a Ball State student and did that. And I've chided him about it because you made my life difficult by what you did 30 years ago. Because you have to avoid those areas and things.
Sure.
And we got to plant trees back. And, you know, we had to reroute a sanitary sewer line. So we got that taken care of. And project-wise, it paid for part of that. So my residents didn't have to pay the whole bill. So it's about an 80-20 split on the cost from the state. We put in 20%.
You do put in a lot of, it takes, you don't just snap your fingers and say, okay, we've got the funding for an overpass, it's done. I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces just to that specific project. And so, again, your intentions are always to serve the best of the citizens. And sometimes you do catch a little bit of questioning on why, where, how come. But the truth is you've done your due diligence to
Yep.
ensure that it is the best location. And if people ever have questions about projects, you have an open door. I've
Absolutely.
never seen you shy away from one of those conversations. You also you questioned a few times about all you ever do is pour money into downtown Wabash. And I think that some listeners don't understand that there's actually an organization that is dedicated to the downtown district that you do have some oversight over, and just in the fact that they come to you as a courtesy to make sure that they are operating with the city's best interest at mind. But some don't realize there's actually an organization that focuses a lot on that investment in the downtown area. Any other thoughts on just clarifying the concern that you only pour money, and I'm going to use air quotes for those
Yeah.
who can't see me, I'm air quoting, only pour money into the downtown area?
Yeah. So if you think about your city as a human body. Human body's got a heart. And downtown in your city is the heart. If the heart isn't pumping, the other organs suffer and die, and the limbs and the things of that nature. Your hair falls out, all that. So I look at downtown as the heart of the community, and if it's not vibrant and it's not beating, then the other areas, North Cass Street, Manchester Avenue, they're going to dry up and blow away, and they're going to die off. South Side, we have people all the time. One initiative I took was to start adding sidewalk to Pike Street and taking the sidewalks that are bad out, that are buckled because of trees in the tree lawn. Okay, we're going to get rid of the tree because we're not going to throw good money after bad. We've already seen it's buckled the sidewalk,
Right.
so let's get rid of it and put a new sidewalk in. Yeah. Plant grass seed, it looks nice. If you want to plant a tree on your property,
Keep it out of the tree lawn.
keep it out of the tree lawn, as far away from our sidewalk as you can get it.
Yeah.
Because we want you to have good sidewalks.
Connectivity for the south side to the rest of the city is important to you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And, we've done that over the years. We did it in the Falls Avenue and Maple Street neighborhood. I can point out Adams Street that I was very well aware that it was getting in poor condition, and made sure that we got that on our community crossings grant paving list, because that's a main road to the city park. So we do that. There's some intentionality to everything we do. When we talk about paving city streets, those streets are graded from 1 to 9, I think. And we have a list of the grades every year, and we pick the worst graded streets, and we put them on our paving list, and we redo them. Then they become a 1. And then we move to the next streets. They're graded poorly. Redo those next year, and then they become a 1. And the ones from the previous year either stay a 1 or they become a 2. That's how we take care of our streets. So
Working within the budget that you have that
Yeah.
allows you to afford to pave so many streets a year, fix
Right.
so many sidewalks a year. And your comment about downtown being that center, that core, one, that's almost geographically how it's located in the
Right.
city limits. And we talk about that introduction to those who are coming through our community on those major highways and byways, and they cut through that downtown area. It is a reflection, but it's not you, as you've said before, you alone. There's a lot of private investment that happens in downtown that is in addition to you. They see the city pouring into planters, ADA compliant crosswalks. For the sidewalks are in great condition. They're wide enough for wheelchairs, strollers, families, and wagons. That incentivizes people, like you see the private investment in the Charlie Creek Inn, the renovations of Modoc's, Lisa Gilman's properties, that list, John Forster's properties, the Eagles Theater renovation. I mean, you can just start to see individuals pouring into their buildings, and that's private investment, along with some help with some partnerships between the city and Downtown Wabash Inc. for some facade support, because those buildings are a huge responsibility to take on in ownership. And my office is the Welcome Center located on Miami Street, and the tremendous amount of people who come in and say what an accomplishment it is to the city and the county that our downtown is still intact, that our facades still record our historical cultural story of where we came from and the memories and where we are today. The improvements are both a preservation of the history, but a reflection of the modern amenities that we do need, like the ADA compliant sidewalks that you focused on, not only in downtown, but I know you're doing those citywide as the budget allows each year. And so it's a marriage between private investment, the city, and also Downtown Wabash Inc. that works really hard to make sure that defined district is well taken care of. There is still work and support that is being done citywide, though. And I know that you are working hard to improve North Cass Street and taking over some of that ownership. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've actually, the state relinquished State Road 15 from US 24 to that through downtown to Wabash Street to the city. So we've taken that over, and the primary goal for that was semis going through our downtown. Now, these buildings were built in the late 1700s, 1800s. They weren't built to withstand the jarring of semi trucks, 80,000 pound trucks driving by. Windows rattle. You're doing business in town. Your windows are rattling, and I don't need my business owners apologizing for, sorry about that, the semis are going through. Well,
Hard
so
corners to make, too.
yeah, absolutely. Just ask NDOT where the crosswalk posts consistently got knocked over after they replaced them. Yeah, so make it easier for the truck drivers and that commerce coming through your city, but at the same time, make it safer for your local residents and maybe reduce that type of traffic through that area. We still get a few that go through, but the traffic has dropped dramatically. So it's March when we took that over.
Are you hoping to install sidewalks out down Cass Street at some point? Is that on your dream list?
Yeah, so we've got them all the way to Harrison Avenue. And I need to get sidewalks from Harrison Avenue north across 24 because there are a lot more people walking nowadays or biking, and they need to get to those places also. So, yeah, the goal is in the future, hopefully before I'm going to get some sidewalks. NDOT, Indiana Department of Transportation's already done the design,
Great.
but it wasn't a project that was selected
Okay.
through their normal funding.
Well, you have a neighborhood, a small, back there's Meadowbrook, which has families in all different ages and levels that live off of Cass Street.
Yep.
It's very close to the school, Wabash City school systems. And like you said, those sidewalks, some people are walking to work down Cass Street. Kids are walking over there to eat after school. And you have those families that live back in that Meadowbrook development area that it isn't safe because there aren't pedestrian walkways along Cass Street. But a lot of pedestrians are walking in the tree lawn, the grass,
Yeah,
to move about right now because it was under the state before you were able to take over some ownership.
right. And if you have to cross Cass Street, it's like playing Frogger,
Yeah.
honestly.
I can kind of hear that music in the background.
Yeah.
Do, do, do,
Yep.
do, 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 do. Alex, do you remember Frogger?
Negative.
I knew he wouldn't. He never gets them. I have gotten to ask lots of my questions and walk you through some things. Adam, what do you have for the mayor while we have him?
Well, I've got a couple of things for you, Mayor. So on social media, we posted that we were going to be sitting you down and we asked for some listener questions. So one of the questions that came up from one of our listeners was how you as mayor of the city, how you feel like you're being able to impact the county as a whole. And you kind of opened up with the fact that this community has some of the best collaboration, and I wholeheartedly agree. But how do you feel like your relationship has grown, or the cities to the county, even Manchester University, even, for example?
Yeah.
How is that all working together at this point, and what's the key to making that work for other communities that might be listening?
Well, I often get calls from LaGros's clerk treasurer because I have a lot of contacts at the state level. And if Christy needs something, she's got my cell number. Hey, give me a call. Hey, there's a train blocking 524 in LaGros for 8 days. Is there somebody you can call? Yeah, let me get a hold of him. So that collaboration and knowing Bob Ferguson and Christy Bone and the people in LaFountain and Adam Penrod and Manchester and Kerry Mugford, being able to call each other whenever we need something. That is one way I think I can benefit the entire county. It's amazing how many calls or messages I get from county residents asking about solutions to something that's going on in the county, and I'll pick up the phone and call now Tyler Nickum or Cheryl Ross or Jeff Dawson say, hey, commissioners, you've got this issue. Here's the person's phone number. Can you get in contact with them? And, try to help the citizens in the county navigate the government, because oftentimes it's not easy to do. To look at a website and figure out which department do I need to talk to about my ditch is flooding and things of that nature. So I don't shy away from that. I grew up in the county. I didn't always live in town, and when I did live in town, I was even in the county school district. And I think that's just being a good steward of not only our county, but the state. I've answered questions for people from other communities. They're like, hey, who do I get a hold of to do this? And I'm like, well, start here. And if you don't get a good enough answer, call me back. And I'll see if I can call somebody and find out.
We're all in this together,
Yeah.
right? And what I have found here, I grew up in Terre Haute, lived in Indianapolis, and now I've spent the last 20 years here in Wabash County. It just feels different because we are all in this together. And when I look at a program like Imagine 185, and that no one person, the mayor didn't want to take more credit than the county or Rowan, we are doing this together, and nobody said, I want my name first.
Right.
We're all equal. We may put in different financial amounts to make this operate, but we're all equal. We know that if we lift LeGros, that Rowan, LaFountain, and the city of Wabash are all that same rising tide.
Yep.
So,
Mayor, I think just to add on to what Adam's point is, I was still in college when the Imagine 185 process started, but I would say that the city of Wabash, like we've talked about, really started to see a turnaround, which started maybe in downtown when you first got into office, right? And there was a lot of momentum on the back half of Stellar when those projects started, when it was Stellar Communities, right? And as you're coming into office, you get a few years under your belt, you get into your second term. Around 2018, 2019 timeframe was when the Imagine 185 process started. I'll steal your reference of the heartbeat, right? And what you were talking about downtown means to the rest of the city of Wabash. The city of Wabash is the heartbeat for Wabash County, right? And was experiencing at the time all of this momentum and starting to see a real revitalization downtown. It would have been extremely easy for you at that point to let the State Road 16 divide between the city of Wabash or North Manchester or LeGros, Rowan, LaFountain, those smaller communities. Speak a little bit, if you would, to the Imagine 185 process when it started, and in those moments when Keith Gillenwater at the time from Grow Wabash County or Patty Grant from the Community Foundation approached you and said, we need everybody on the same team. Because I think that's such an important conversation about the leadership role you took in that as the community that was seeing a lot of momentum at the time,
Right.
positive momentum, and then speak a little bit about maybe to what that looks like today, several years later.
Well, around that same time, maybe my second year in office, Keith came to me about the State of the Communities event, which was State of the City. And he's like, hey, what if we invite county commissioners to speak? And Adam Penrod, North Manchester. And I said, what about Rowan and LeGros and LaFountain, the incorporated towns? Because there's a lot of good things going on in those towns that people don't hear about. There's not a daily newspaper that could concentrate on what's going on in LaFountain this week or what's going on in LeGros. So for the last few years, we've had this State of Our Communities event, and it's fantastic to sit there and hear what LaFountain's doing as far as their parks, and Bob Ferguson and his dream of having that park. And then we apply for Stellar Pathways. First thing I said was Stellar was great for Wabash. I want those communities to feel some of that love and get some of that benefit from Stellar Pathways. You know, the rising tide lifts all ships. Well, that's what Stellar's going to do.
mm-hmm.
Just to have our county be a shining star in this state. And you're right, the city of Wabash is the heartbeat of the county, and that's why I think I'm so supportive of these other communities and their projects. We started talking Stellar Pathways. I said, the city doesn't really need a whole lot. I want those guys to get the projects. Now, the projects we did get, trail and senior center improvements, are going to be fantastic because, when you talk about the senior center, people think, well, that's just for the old people. Well, yeah, it is, but you can rent the room. My family's had baby showers and birthday parties out there
Or if you have parents or grandparents that
Right.
are older adults in this community.
because I'm older now.
But to your point, Mayor, I remember those conversations when we were preparing our application for Stellar Pathways, and even down at the presentation, I remember you opening saying, we're here today because of what Stellar Communities did for the city of Wabash. That's why we're back today with this countywide vision and have all this momentum in these other communities. But when we were putting together that application, even the Living Well Senior Center project, that's $1.7 million of Stellar funding, just over a $2 million total project in the first phase, or the River Trail extension, both of those are countywide amenities, right?
Right.
Senior Center is a countywide thing that'll be used by residents all over Wabash County. And the Trail project just builds on the significant work that you and private individuals have poured into that project over the last 5 years that'll now just extend it the next stretch right up to the city park and runs all the way out to LaGros, which has been a game changer for that community that was spurred from that project at the beginning, right? It's still that even the projects that are physically maybe located or that community members will see construction the next couple years as a part of the Stellar Pathways Initiative, those are countywide benefits, and that's because of your leadership and those conversations with all of our leaders from Wabash County.
Well, somebody's got to do it. I mean, I've come
You
up.
say that. I'm going to interrupt you. You say somebody's got to do it. No, they don't. You're
Right.
choosing. You're
Right.
choosing to take on all this extra work. You came right on after we just recently been awarded the Stellar designation, but the work hadn't began. We had planning, we had
Yep.
pitches, we had project ideas, but boots on the street hadn't happened yet.
Right.
And with Stellar, we received how much in grant funding? Do you remember what the Stellar amount was?
Somewhere between 12.5 and 14 million.
14 million
Yeah.
in money investment here. You turn around, we get the Small Business Revolution Main Street, another $500,000
Yeah.
instantly invested back in our community. You're talking Stellar Pathways because of the work we all continue to choose to do, and it's extra and it's a lot. How much was Stellar Pathways total award?
7 million.
Another 7 million coming in. That tells me, and we'll go back to saying someone has to do the work, I promise. But that tells me that when we are selected, we are respected by those decision makers, that when we take their investment, we are going to be excellent stewards. We are going to see projects through their completion with the work of the leadership that comes out of not only your standard organizations, but truly that comprehensive plan that is so unique to Wabash County. The Imagine 185 plan isn't sitting somewhere collecting dust on a shelf, right? It's not just this, we ticked a box, because we choose to do the work consistently year after year while maintaining the improvements we've already done. And I'm saying we because it is collective. It's at the hands of our public and servants and the leadership we have. Imagine 185 is now from the planning phase to the implementation phase. We've only been 3 years in the implementation phase. Because we have this plan, we're seeing $7 million come back into our community. We're showing, we're planning our work, we're working our plan, we are being good stewards in the investments that we receive from just those particular grants. That doesn't cover all the other grants that I know the nonprofits individually are using as wins to leverage as matching funds against, for instance, and most recently, Stellar Pathways. Am I correct on that, Alex?
Correct.
Yeah. So you go back to saying someone's got to do it. It's a choice you choose.
Well, I've often said to myself, if I don't do it, who will?
Okay.
That's gotten me in some situations I'd rather not be in. But success begets success. So, Stellar in 2014, America's Best Communities finalist 2015, Small Business Revolution 2016. 2 months in the office, hey, Mayor, we got to go have dinner with people from Deluxe. And I'm like, the Czech people?
Yeah.
And buckle up, here we go, because I've seen communities who have gotten awards and they complete it, and that's it. And there again, you got to have a vision for what's next. What are we going to do next? When are we going to get our first roundabout in Wabash? It's coming. It's going to happen, just like the railroad bridge. And people are going to cuss me up one side and down the other.
A lot of the listeners just cringed at the roundabout.
Yeah, but I'm going to guarantee you it's going to make an area of our community safer when we get it done.
As long as you don't get stuck in it, like the Autobahn.
Yeah.
How do I get out of this thing? I
You
don't know.
just got to go faster.
Traffic never feels like it's going to, I think it'll improve flow,
Right.
but it's never going to be like you're never going to get in to the roundabout in
Right.
Wabash. It's just going to keep the ease of that flow going. Yeah.
But there are new things out there. We've had the relinquishment of State Road 15, which is Canal and Market Street downtown. So what's our next idea? How can we improve parking? And there are ideas out there, reverse angled parking.
Oh, wait, we got to back into it? Well, it's a good thing I got a camera on my vehicle. It could be
You know
dangerous.
what the key to that
Whoa.
is, though? If you're a mother with small children who like to jump out of the car, the door's open and they're forced to go to the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's true.
Instead of the street.
It does. That is a protective measurement. I mean, I might be like to get into it.
I've
but,
seen you
know,
parallel park.
like that.
So
I
like
parallel
that.
park backwards.
Yeah. So
Shane doesn't have to do any sound editing. You make enough sounds and
do.
noises throughout an episode.
sounds like the old radio show. You wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah.
You're too young.
He just learned what Raz means earlier
Yeah.
today. So
Well, I was glad I could help out.
I'm an old soul.
Old soul. Yeah, so there are so many good ideas out there that I'm going to go steal.
sure.
I'm not going to come up with it myself. I've invited mayors to Wabash. I'm like, see something you like, take it home, implement it. If it's good for us, it's good for you. If it's good for Wabash, it's good for LaGros and Rowan and LaFountain. And if they do something good, it's good for the citizens of Wabash. Don't stay in Wabash. Hit the river trail. Drive to LaGros. Go to the festivals.
Or if
in
you're
these
Adam, you can run
towns.
there.
He's special. Him and how many other 100 people?
416 for Wabash Run the River.
Wow.
You mentioned how you will get inspired by other communities. I know personally, I've accompanied you on several trips, and I know you've been on where you've mentored other communities who look to the work that the city of Wabash and Wabash County as a whole and the communities are accomplishing and moving the needle and tackling the tough subjects. And I would have to say that's because you're willing to walk through those doors. You're willing to crawl in the manhole
Right.
at Bob Gray's direction to address a problem. If you need to see it, you're willing to do that type of work. And so you're also willing to share that outwardly in other successes that we have that others could potentially replicate.
Mayor, when you were describing the timeline just from really 2014 around the time you got in office a couple years later, right, to now is a perfect example of how we have these successes, but that doesn't mean we stop, right? And it most definitely feels now we're in this time, right, where the flywheel's spinning. Right? There's a lot going on in the city of Wabash. There's a lot going on in North Manchester, LaGros, Rowan, LaFountain, across Wabash County. And it's time, right, to continue what's next, right? What's that next vision that you do such a great job of never stopping, right? Now's the time to double down on things and keep things moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm not sitting here making these decisions. I'm gathering people. After Stellar, I got a group together kind of a planning committee. Where do we go from here? What projects in the initial Stellar application are still viable? And which one of them should we kick to the curb? What other projects should we do? And it's just been a continuation of that momentum of winning Stellar in 2014. Okay, what do we do next? How do we make this community better? We put a fitness court in, and everybody's like, oh, a fitness court. Why are you putting it there? Well, it's right along the river trail. So if the people are exercising on the Riverwalk River Trail, and they want to take a break and do
Do a
some
couple
core
pull-up.
training,
Yeah. It's free.
a perfect place to do it. And then you go to White Rock and get a milkshake and then go work it off.
It's balance.
You know,
It's balance.
Mayor, we've talked about a lot of different initiatives, a lot of different projects, down to the granular sidewalks, all the way up to the large initiatives and large scale projects. Not to put you on the spot, but in your time now as a third term mayor, what is the thing you're most excited about or most proud about so far in your career with public service and some of the projects you've gotten to work on?
man, that's a tough one to answer, Alex. There's been so much that I had the staff, I'm like, we got to make a list of what we've done, because once something happens, I'm already working on the next thing. So that one, okay, we got that done. Let's get this done. And that's been the flow for 10 years. Some of the things that aren't completed yet are the housing developments, the riverfront. We got a developer that wants to build 100 apartment units on the Wabash riverfront. We got a developer that wants to put up housing on East Market Street between Paradise Springs and the museum. I've got a developer working on GDX. You talk about something that's taken some time. Finally got some resolution of that and starting to clean up and getting development plans done for not only apartments, but maybe a commercial building and some single family residences there. I do want to get into affordable housing because people need to understand, and I look at social media and they say nobody can afford the houses that are being built in this community. However, if you would go out, call a local contractor on how much it would cost to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a garage, it's going to be as expensive as these homes, if not more. I mean, we had a 3-bedroom ranch building permit applied for. Cost was going to be $298,000 for a conventional stick-built home. So affordable housing. Now, are we talking about subsidized housing, apartments where they get some government assistance? Tried to do that with the Bowen Center in their new location, and the developer that wanted to do it, wonderful apartments that they built in Warsaw and everywhere else, backed out. Bowen backed out because of the not in my backyard mentality in the community. Yeah, we need it, but you can't build it there.
So they
Well,
weren't allowed to build there?
They
that-
just backed away from it because they didn't want the public outcry.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the things, people complain constantly, but they don't come to me with a solution. Okay? So if you're going to complain about something, if you're going to complain about subsidized housing and where we're trying to locate it, come to me with a better location, a better solution, properly zoned, where we can build this stuff, and we'll work to get it done. But haven't had that call yet. It's just don't build it here. Well, okay, if not there, where? You're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. You can't have it both ways.
You can hop in the boat and help row,
Right,
or you can stay on the shore and direct, right? But we all have to be in that boat,
right.
choosing the direction we're all rowing in, and then start paddling there. And that's what you see happening in Wabash County.
And that's a good analogy. So people that are watching this, if you're not rowing now, we're inviting you to come and row.
Always.
We are always looking for new ideas. I'm looking for people to serve on boards and commissions constantly.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a part of the rowers, get a hold of any of us in this room, and we can point you to the boat that needs 2 rowers or maybe only 1 rower.
The countless hours, not only the 4 of us in this room donate, volunteer, and serve above and beyond, that goes nights and weekends, our time to serve not only on formal boards and volunteer roles, which is important for a thriving community to have those roles. It takes effort to stay informed, to ask the questions if you don't understand. And I've come to you in the past and said, can you explain this better to me? I have never heard you say no. I've never heard you tell anyone, no, I will not explain this to you. And I've heard both Adam and Alex take some time to explain pieces that they're involved with as well. I've never heard any of us in this room say, no, we won't tell you. We're saying, absolutely, how do we fold you in? You have a better idea? We want to hear it. And that's what we hope a piece of this podcast does. We hope it opens those conversations for clarity for ourselves at times. You know, we may have some questions for you or other stakeholders or citizens, and as well as share some of that clarity of the work and the sweat equity it takes to either be in the boat rowing or standing on the sidelines shouting instructions.
Right.
And I think to Mayor's point he made prior, just that these ideas or these projects aren't any one of us or just us in this room that are sitting around a table drawing up on a drawing board how something should look. It is focus group and community engagement and survey. All of that is rooted down to the specific elements of a project. We have a trail project up in North Manchester, and in an engagement session, the community member was most concerned to make sure that there were dog poop bag stands and disposals along the way, right? I mean, it is down the real shiny things that everybody will see down to those minute details. It is not a unilateral decision, right? Like we're fortunate enough to be in positions of leadership, but that does not mean that it's our ideas that we've just pulled out one day to happen, right? It's rooted in stakeholder and community engagement.
Yeah, for sure. And we need more younger people to get involved. Somebody has to pick up the torch when we're done and carry on. And
Well, thank goodness Alex has Connor. He's even younger.
Yeah.
You know, so we're starting. But you're absolutely right. And I've heard Alex say, all of us have said this. These plans to dream big and be big started decades, centuries ago with the people who came before us.
Right.
You know, and they have taught us the work that needs to continue. And you're correct, Mayor. We have to continue filling our boat with all different age and demographics of people so that they continue the work long after you and I finally retire completely. 100%. And we're hanging out at the senior center.
Yeah.
And walking the new trail.
Playing bingo.
But that starts with our adult residents today, right? And how they're raising their kids, their grandkids, and their family. I mean, those younger generations of wanting to be engaged. The conversations about being involved in the community, being in a community that you're able to be engaged at the conversation and be at the table. If we're going to have those younger people and future generations, it means that we have got to retain the ones that are growing up here, right? The young people that are growing up here.
Well, and there doesn't need to be an immediate retention. We know kids are going to go to college and they're going to get a job and they want to be in wherever.
Right. That's right.
But I've said this to the high school classes. I said, go, you know, Cassidy, go to Champagne. But when you're ready to raise a family, come back to Wabash.
And she will. She has
will,
made that very clear. She said, I want to raise my family in the community that helped raise me.
Right. And she's going to gain experience in a larger community and get some ideas that she can bring back, you know.
Absolutely.
I've told the high school students when I go and talk to them, I said, I know you're going to leave, but what I'm doing now, I want to make this community something you want to come back to, and I want it to be safe. You know, I want to have 28 police officers, and well, why do you need 28? We have a safe community. Well, why do you think we have a safe community? Because we have 28 police officers who live here who are invested in the community and they care about it. You don't get that in a big city.
You're also not running them 2 squad cars 24/7. You know, the response time, because policing isn't a 9 to 5.
No.
It's not 16 paid holidays a year. It's 365, 24/7.
Yeah.
You know, and the things that our police officers have to be equipped to handle in addition to seatbelt checks is so much further than we can even imagine in ticketing and, you know, arrest. It's accidents, follow-up. I mean, it's a whole array of different types of service in addition to, you know, making sure you've got your click it or ticket.
You know, why do we have police officers taking cars home. A, they take better care of the vehicle if it's assigned to them. They treat it as their own. B, the neighborhood they live in is safer because that's a deterrent to crime.
It's also a faster response time, I would
And
imagine.
C, it's a faster response time.
Yeah.
If something major happens, God forbid we ever have a school shooting, I got 28 officers. They each have their own car, and I can have 28 officers on scene quickly.
And then we'll be grateful. We'll be grateful for that.
I'm like, man, I'm glad we had 28 police officers.
Mayor,
That's
for those high school kids that have gone off and they'll be back hopefully in 5 years or 10 years, what's your ideal of what Wabash County and the city of Wabash is like in 20 or 25 years?
To have the amenities that they want to come back to that they weren't able to avail themselves of. Stuff that they got used to in, say they're in Carmel or Fishers and there's parks and trails and all this other stuff, and that's the key. I moved in a new neighborhood on the south side in March, and my old neighborhood, great neighborhood, too much traffic, and my kids were inside all the time on their tablets or whatever. Now I can't get them to come in, and I love it. And the neighborhood's full of kids, and all the parents watch out for the kids in the neighborhood. I wouldn't have it any other way. Can't get them to understand when the street lights come on, come home.
It's 10 o'clock.
We're
Do you know where your
working on it.
children
Yeah,
are?
I remember those
I do
commercials.
too.
Yeah.
It's 10 o'clock, parents do.
And my parents didn't know where
Well,
I was.
I was
or-
going to say they got it honestly a little
Yeah.
bit. You.
Yeah.
I do want to take a moment to thank Jackie. Your wife does have to come second at times when I know that would not be your preference, and your work does take you away from your family and your kids. And so that doesn't come with some sacrifice. So I do want to take this moment to really thank Jackie for the role she plays in supporting you in all the extra that you go above and beyond for the people who live here, the people who live in the county, and then people who live across the state that call you and ask you for help. I just thank you, Jackie, for that. That's,
I appreciate that.
That's selfless.
And I'll throw that on the backs of the spouses of my police and firemen too.
All your department heads are
yeah.
very responsive after hours.
For those guys, I don't know how many Christmases I worked when I was on the police department. People don't think about that. Holidays, these guys are working, and did it in the military. I used to cover guard duty for guys that had kids because I was single. Like, man, spend Christmas with your kids. I'll take your guard duty and give me back some other time. So we got to figure out an initiative to make Wabash kind. Let's just be kind. Your license plate says
Love
love all. I'm not saying you got to love your neighbor, but
Well,
know who your neighbor is.
give them a chance to be loved.
Talk to
or
'em.
respect the differences and then kindly choose
Right.
not to be in relationship people, but we can
But you
choose to
don't
be
have
kind.
to be mean about it. You can just say, I don't agree with that. I pull my neighbor's garbage cans up, and I watch out for their kids when I'm outside. And the kids in the neighborhood call me Mr. Mayor. I'm like, yeah, what you want? But we have to get civilization, not just here in Wabash, but throughout, to be kind.
But there's no reason it can't start right here.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying let's put be kind signs up in your yard. Hold the
Or-
door open for somebody at a restaurant.
It starts with a gesture. Yeah.
Put a smile at somebody walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many mornings I'm walking downtown and I'm like, good morning. Some people return it.
Yeah.
Some people are, whatever.
Yeah.
I would say growing up in a big city compared to living in Wabash County, for me, it's maintaining that kindness spirit that does make us special and different in the city of Wabash and in Wabash County that we do have here, that those bigger communities, that wasn't my experience all the time. There's less of that. And so raising children that every parent on the streets watching out for them, and it feels
Right.
like a safe community, and we have that welcoming spirit to folks, is something, in my opinion, that we have in Wabash County. But the most important part, Mayor, as you were saying, is we've got to, post-COVID, now that that's all behind us, now we've got to make sure we continue that and continue to build upon that moving forward.
And be respectful. You don't have to agree with somebody, and you don't have to share their opinion, but be respectful about it.
Absolutely. You know, this has been such an insightful episode because we've covered a vast array of topics, all rooted in working together. And again, we're not always going to see everything exactly the same, but having those conversations to figure out the solution to what could be or what could be better, or how do
Right.
we address it at some point. Your website has gone through a massive makeover, making it much more user-friendly in the last few years. You just released a new portal for those who are in the city that have a concern about a property to make it even easier for them to get their information in.
Yep.
I know that it has been very important for you to have a live human answer City Hall's phones to make sure that every single resident is heard or followed up with or directed to the right department. And so if for those who are listening or watching on YouTube, we'll have that link directly in our show notes. We've talked a lot about the city's role with Stellar Pathways, with Imagine 185. We'll have links in our show notes about all of those plans. And we'll also have a link so that if you have questions to follow up with Mayor Long, you can. We'll have that in our show notes so that you can choose to get on his calendar appointment, because he is consistently in meetings and called away to do the work. Sometimes he might be in a manhole. You never know. We'll have his email linked in our show notes. Mayor, we cannot thank you enough for going above and beyond over and over and over. And also, we want to thank you for being the very early onset supporter of Alex, Adam, and I on this podcast. We are grateful to be able to help share the stories collectively together. And along with the City of Wabash, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, Visit Wabash County, Mark and Amy Ford, Lisa Gilman Investment Fund, Sandy Kunkel Trust, and Paperworks Industries have all stepped up to help make sure that we can tell the stories through the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. So again, thank you so much. Co-host, do you have anything else for the mayor?
I thought I was going to get skipped over at the end. I was really looking forward to putting the mayor on the spot.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I want to know, is there a fourth term for the mayor?
It's a little early.
What the heck are you looking at me for?
It's a little bit early, Adam. I'm not going to rule anything out.
That is the
Four-term
most political thing I have ever heard Mayor Long say before. That was the most political answer
mayor.
maybe I've ever heard.
You know, I've got until probably sometime around February of 2027.
Talk about a cliffhanger. This might be the best ending we've ever had on an episode. All right. We'll see.
Mayor,
Let's come back and talk about the state legislature and the cuts they're making to cities, and then
Which is something we had on our itinerary
I
today.
bet.
I think that we're going to have to do episode
Yeah.
2 at some point with Mayor Long.
And
because
maybe-
I can bring back some stats, and if that's what we're going to talk about, I can explain, you know.
And you've said you need to take some time to really get in and understand it. It's so new
Yep.
to not only to you, but every single community, county, city in the state of Indiana is
Yep.
facing this
And-
exact same.
And schools.
Sure.
Yeah,
Libraries.
I mean, it's
Sure.
not for profits,
Yeah, sure. It's scary.
you know.
Mayor, thank you for not only being in the podcast studio with us tonight for your candid answers, but thank you for your service in the military and our police, and also now as mayor. Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, Mayor, thanks for joining us. And regardless of the calling it quits or another term, I know you never think about this, but Wabash has been lucky to have you, and you've continued to build such a strong legacy. Again, if we're lucky enough to have you for another term and to see what more exciting things come, we just appreciate all you've done and continue to do for today and tomorrow for Wabash.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, until next time, this is Thrive in Wabash County.